Our second guest, Terese, Skärvagen and Vanessa Ware, are leading the digitalization and the business development and the innovation in public housing, Sweden's Sveriges allmännytta. Terese is a Chief Program Officer and Open Source Lead, and Vanessa is responsible for the business development and innovation. They are coordinating and improving and actually enabling the innovation work within an ecosystem that of 100 public housing company members in Sweden. Yearly, their activities bring together over 6,000 individuals, which makes them the most important hub in their ecosystem. Terese and Vanessa will talk about how to harness power of the ecosystems and how to co-create better living for all.
And you guys in the audience, keep on posting those great comments and questions in the chat, and we'll incorporate them in the discussions the best we can.
Yeah. So you are very welcome to join us from Sweden, Terese, Skärvagen and Vanessa Ware.
What is the public housing sector? The public housing sector is made up of municipal housing companies throughout Sweden that offer rental apartments to everyone. More than half of Sweden's residents live in a detached house or small self-contained home that they own themselves. 18% live in housing cooperatives and around 30% rent their home. Roughly half of all rental apartments are owned by private landlords and the other half are owned by municipal housing companies. It is these municipal rental apartments that make up the public housing sector. Sweden's municipalities are responsible for their residents having somewhere to live. This involves planning and preparing land where homes are to be built, as well as owning housing companies that build, renovate and rent out these homes. Sweden's public housing sector provides housing to everyone, regardless of age, ethnicity or income, for example. This is something that all the political parties agree on. In many other European countries, special apartments are only offered to those on low incomes. Our Swedish model of housing for everyone is regulated by special legislation. This legislation means that the public housing sector not only has a social responsibility, but must also be businesslike. This social responsibility includes creating safe and pleasant neighborhoods. It also means building new homes and renovating existing ones in order to contribute to the long-term sustainability of society. Being businesslike means that housing companies in the public housing sector must be profitable over time and compete with private housing companies on equal terms. In addition, public housing residents must be given the opportunity to be involved in the management of their housing and to influence issues that are important to those living in the area. This is called tenant empowerment.
This is our topic today: public housing going digital. 100 companies from all over the country providing housing in cities and small towns in the north, south, east, west of Sweden. Digital maturity ranges from managing innovation portfolios, including electricity grids, to where do we start? Yet, public housing companies have more in common than not. Together, they can leverage their business challenges in a common framework that enables co-creation.
But let's start by introducing ourselves and the team. I'm Terese, Chief Program Officer of the initiative called Public Housing Going Digital. There are 4 of us heading this program, started by the industry association Public Housing Sweden, which holds about all public housing companies in Sweden as its members. That means roughly 315, of which 100 take active part in our endeavors. With me today is Vanessa Ware, who is our lead data-driven business development and innovation.
Great to be here. With 26 months into this 3-year challenge, we have learned a lot and continuously adapt our way of working. So to understand digitalization within this sector, we need to understand Sweden's public housing mission. The Swedish public housing sector has been a community provider for more than 70 years. We have a firm ground in providing housing. Today, the sector is a primary tool to meet challenges well beyond that function. As you can see, always working towards long-term environmental, economic and social sustainability.
The Million Homes program in the 70s truly cemented public housing companies as an industrialist. The program did not only build a massive amount of homes, it also increased living standards in Sweden and played an important role in founding the district heating infrastructure of Sweden.
The Swedish public housing model is unique in many ways, and the role of industrialist is true for both large and small PH companies. The culture within urban development in Sweden is very open, it's collaborative, and our history is very relevant in shaping this culture between public and private interests.
Taking this great foundation into an era of digital transformation and smart sustainable cities, our mission is to form a model for collaboration and co-creation within PH sector and its ecosystem, enabling common solutions and principles for sustainable development of society and in support of the digital transformation in Sweden. We deliver an adaptive business architecture, extensive toolbox, and common practices and solutions following open source principles.
Tech can't be the sole driver. We're all aware of that. So shifting perspective from which system can solve my problem, thus adjusting or even limiting humans and society to IT boundaries, we want to look at our tenants' needs, our colleagues' needs, organizational needs, and societal needs. Defining our needs and communicating them is a crucial step towards providing meaning in our ecosystem. The big questions for a sustainable industrial-sized real estate company is, however big or small, how do we take care of our buildings? How will people live their everyday lives in 20 years?
We should strive not only to make the right decisions today, but towards prediction, the right decisions tomorrow and for years to come. From the Million Homes program, and the PH sector has mind-boggling 40 to 60 years worth of insight on how people live their everyday lives and make choices for the future. As every seventh Swede lives in a home provided by us, the big question is now, how do we access and make use of this data to help and build and transform our communities into sustainable and prosperous living environments for all? So, this very happy image is perhaps a little bit too much to take in, but it gives you some idea about how the team from Solita structure our toolbox and the backbone of our approach, by providing services and reusable assets that are designed and developed together and from common needs. The value being possibility to share experiences and knowledge, but also co-creation and collaboration. By sharing common resources like building blocks, assets, tools based on common needs, the adaptive part being that not one size fits all, but rather that the companies can choose different strategies and approaches within this framework. Our aim is to enable for all members to execute at their own pace and priorities. This also enables us and the PH companies to work with a number of different partners and firms using open source principles, and thus between competitors collaborate and develop solutions further. In short, the business architecture from Solita is not only adaptive to varying needs from our members, it's also collaborative by design, which was a requirement on our end when we chose Solita as a partner.
Here we are, with the starting point and the final setting. Fundamental for our work is to facilitate the development of a platform architecture that can enable connectivity. This architecture needs to be adaptable as well. All companies will not have a state-of-the-art infrastructure, and development of something new always implies an exit in some sense. So in short, both starting point, priorities, strategy for future position will vary, as well as the level of competence in our IT strategy, governance and investment to execute. We'll say it once again, it's just not one size fits all.
The business architecture that we design with the team of consultants from Solita is the backbone of all our efforts. I find that the approach we have is quite effective to drive change in a non-obtrusive manner. In my opinion, it also challenges many informal truths about consultancy that are quite counterproductive. For example, we thrive on openness, and it seems like that when you do, people not only want to join, but contribute. For us, this is crucial. We started in a position where vendor lock-in was holding the status quo. Vendor lock-in is still a massive hurdle, but we challenged the status quo, and now we see progress.
While we do some exploration, it is the co-designing that provides concrete results and lessons learned for the housing companies and ourselves to develop direction and capacity. We work on pre-scaling, but scaling is facilitated only when asked for. However, it's in the practice of co-designing that we can identify and work on well-defined, well-sized use cases with interdisciplinary teams.
We find that this approach also works to engage the different levels of our organizations and members. I still wouldn't say that we've erased the difficulties in aligning stakeholders, which we all know is a major challenge in change management. But we have found a way to work with it that helps our endurance. It means less latgajenka and more baby steps.
The number of use cases, together they make up a co-creation process where the significant parts of the puzzle emerge and we start to connect the dots and be able to act within the bigger picture. Let's have a look at our ways of working and toolbox.
A long tradition within Allmännyttan is that when starting out on a new project, you meet other companies to exchange experiences and insights. To aid and support PH companies to get started with a certain area such as social inclusion or business architecture, we provide guides, video briefings from ecosystem companies, step-by-step methods and cases from other housing companies to learn and benchmark with. The material is provided in an online educational platform where it's possible to follow the progress of a group of users from our end. The assets and tools are always developed together with membering companies to ensure that they are applicable and relevant for their setting. At the next level of development, we facilitate collaborative concepts like, for example, our data lab. Semi-structured data and information that lack structure is a big hurdle in real estate. In our data lab, we approach this challenge in order to build PH sector's ability to share insight and enable exchange between housing companies and actors in the ecosystem. Vanessa, tell us more about what this means in practice.
Thanks, Terese. So we have a number of areas highly relevant for the companies we work with. This is what we strive towards: increasing energy efficiency, reducing climate effects, improving social inclusion, working on automation. And we have started to take some very concrete steps. So we're now looking at examples of some of the use cases we're currently working on, typically with 1 or 2 real estate companies involved, contributing both with needs and, of course, their domain expertise. These use cases range from aligning data to national standards, visualizing a number of data sets for analysis and real-time alerts, or connecting public institutionally produced data with specific housing areas to get a better understanding of who lives there, what languages are spoken amongst the tenants, and to be able to discuss present and future needs. The labs, we actually have 2, one for process and one for data. They share a similar way of working. Let's talk a little bit about that. So we have a company with a dedicated team that wants to work together with our expertise, our partners. They bring their problems to one of the labs. Their needs are addressed in a structured way, and we always look for generic characteristics. We identify them to make needs more general when formulated in a use case description, a brief for a project or a prototype, easy to interact with and develop within the ecosystem for our partners and companies with similar needs. So what we're actually doing here is facilitating collaboration by using prototyping and also creating a community around common needs We do have a long list of use cases derived from the labs, and they are available for open development. Now you remember the pyramid. At the top, we facilitate co-creation. This is about exploring how we can create our future living environments and the tech that enables it. These areas, especially urban development, connectivity, and digital twins, are really important for our housing companies so that they can contribute to smart, sustainable cities. Okay, so here we have the examples of innovation collaborations we have or are in the process of facilitating now. Living labs. How can a real estate company test new services and features in a structured way when renovating their buildings? We work on KPI-linked and data. How can we connect projects and processes, such as, for instance, renovation and tenant dialogue, that have different value logics today? How can we connect them to rich and possibly integrate them in a grander process in the future? Digital twins, very relevant within real estate. What level of detail in a digital twin can empower facility management? And also, how can we develop a twin for people's homes that can't just be scanned like an industrial facility? Let's dive into how we work. We provide a model for collaboration where at least one partner and one real estate company go into partnership with us. We share the risk by sharing the financing. This enables the companies to get a quick go-ahead, which is important, as you know. We also share the learnings of a pilot with all of our partners and 100 member companies. This has opened up for further development when a second member company steps in and wants to push forward and continue the work, which is great.
So, to summarize, Public Housing Going Digital Toolbox provides actions on 3 community building levels. The base provides common ground to start cooperating. The center defines common needs, facilitating collaboration. The top tier enables co-creation. We explore emerging tech. New solutions can be based on these experiences. So, thank you very much. And we are now eager and open for discussion. So please give us any questions you might have.
Good morning, Sweden. How are we today?
Just fine, thank you.
Oh.
How are you guys?
I'd say we're pretty good. What's the weather like outside?
It's steamy. Wet in a steamy kind of way.
Oh, good. Yeah, this is. I'm so still in the sort of Teams meeting things. I'm just sort of. This comes from my backbone. I need to ask about weather and stuff. We have no idea what weather it is here. We're in a dark studio, but hopefully.
That actually, the view of Stockholm is sort of similar to the beautiful view you have on set with the forest that looks steamy as well.
Good. Hey guys, thanks for a really inspiring presentation. A lot to digest and take in. If I start sort of with a soft question, you've already gone quite a long way. What are your key learnings at this point in terms of what worked, what didn't go as anticipated, what went better than expected? Any sort of ideas on that?
Well, one key learning, of course, is seeing is believing. When we talk a lot about defining use cases and prototyping in the code designing phase, and when we do that, we can engage more people in the issues at hand. So we work. We are, Terese and I and our colleagues are, of course, in a fortunate position because we only work with transformation and development, but our colleagues within Sweden Public Housing have a lot of other things to do as well in daily operations. So to make the connections and get that extra energy to engage themselves, they need also to see proofs of concepts to move forward.
How do you bridge proofs of concepts into then changes in whether it's business process or offering or so forth. What happens after a POC?
So actually what happens is that when we do a proof of concept, afterwards we will present that to all the 100 companies if they want to join. And then we would just ask, I guess, what is your interest to do pilots within this area? And then we try to break the proof of concept down into pilots with the same, like easy to get started and safe to fail. So that's basically our approach, and I'm quite happy actually that we don't have that many candidates that want to, due to what Vanessa just said, that they do have a day job as well. So we don't get like 50 companies to say, oh, we want to do this. We get maybe we can handle it. So.
Maybe listening to you, maybe you should be aware that maybe there soon will be the 50 companies saying, we want in.
Well, I think this is a really good point, Mayu. I mean, our initiative, we are in the midst of finalizing and wrapping up and finding lots of partners who can take programs, insights, prototypes and bring them for further development after August 22 when our assignment is done. But the really interesting question will be, what will it look like in Swedish public housing sector in a couple of years? Like how have we moved forward together as a whole at that point in time?
So what we want to do is make it easy to make these companies very accessible for anybody who wants to cooperate or collaborate with them. So it's not about how many pilots we do. It's more about that we do it in a structured way. So when we're not around anymore, it's very easy to start working in collaborations with a public housing company, because all the abilities are basically there.
There's one also really great question to continue. Like, what kind of skills or knowledge gaps have you identified in the public housing companies, and how are you learning to go on? Have you noticed some really maturity differences in the companies?
Well, there is a span of digital maturity, which is really interesting. We briefly touched upon it in the presentation. And of course, it's about maturity, but also size, what kind of investments can you do? And we see the middle to large size companies, often in university towns, are at the forefront. And what they are doing, everyone can't follow that. We need to pick out and package much more accessible solutions, ways of working for companies that are still in a coordinating phase, or even mobilizing phase. They haven't come that far yet. I'm not sure I answered your question now, Mayu. But they are. I mean, the companies are at different phases in their digital maturity, and one competency that we do maybe worry a little bit about is IT and information security. Wouldn't you say, Terese?
Yeah, I would say that. But cybersecurity is a big worry for anybody who works with connectivity. And my worry is it's not that the companies lack maturity. It's more like humanity lacks maturity within this field. If we start connecting things, it's highly complex, and we do not handle that that amount of complex materia, I think, and real estate is and automation is highly complex from the beginning. So it's in an industrial scale. I wouldn't say it's easy to do automation, but at least in a factory there are workers there, but it's not like people's homes.
There's a really interesting example in Sweden within our ecosystem where a company that works with access systems provide an API for our SOS service that enables SOS. In Sweden, we call it blue light personnel. So ambulances, fire brigade, police, when they need to go out, they can access houses through the API. So the doors are opened up. And apparently they have access to 2 million homes.
Okay.
So, of course, this does save lives, and there's some figures on the number of lives saved so far, thanks to this service. But it raises a lot of questions as well that we need to deal with.
Yeah, it creates quite a significant threat vector in terms of cybersecurity, for example. We have a couple of other good questions in the chat we could also bring front. Thank you, Maria, for the question we had just a second ago. John is asking, could you describe a simple, specific example of how you solved a customer problem from start to finish?
Simple.
Is that a tall order?
Well, let's pick up on that. I like one of the phrases that we use a number of use cases, and by doing so, we can connect the dots. So a core process within the companies that we work with is felanmälan, Terese.
Yeah. Error handling. Or incident handling.
Incident handling. So when we started out 2 years ago, one of the big questions was, which system should we use for incident handling? Like a medium-sized company can have 100,000 incident reports a year. And the majority of them come actually from the tenants who see things in their homes. So our approach to that question is multilateral. We work with in the process lab. We gather 5, 6, 7, 8 companies that work on the pains. What's problematic with the incident handling today? In the data lab, we look at the historic data, like what insights can we draw out of the hundreds and thousands of incident reports we have already. And at the same time, we do market analysis and follow very closely the startup scene in Sweden to find out which are our future partners that can provide services in this area. So our approach is not about, okay, we start here, yes, we finished. We work all around in the ecosystem and try to get things going, to put it very, very simply. And then we can find insights from these different actions and start connecting the dots. And by doing so, hopefully support our companies in making crucial business decisions concerning this core process.
And I think it's fair to add also that we also put the layer of service design and design thinking on that approach. But I'm a firm believer that if you ask a tenant what they want, they will say like, yeah, I just want to book the laundry room with my phone. It doesn't solve any of the problems that we can see in the data. But if we define the problems in the data and ask them a much better question, then we can get a much better answer. Because basically what people say, and there we use semantic analysis too, to actually, so what do people mean when they say they want a paper in their letterbox with information from us? They don't want that information digitally or what? But basically, we found out what they're saying is that they're worried that all the people that live in their house maybe don't have the ability to access internet, and there are a lot of old people, and so we work a lot on that as well.
Yeah, you've won our hats already.
Yeah, I think. Asking
come on board.
Yes.
No more papers.
We'll jump over just after this call. Asking a question like "What do you want?" is sort of super difficult, because to gain some meaningful insight from it, it should be, here are a host of different possibilities. You need to make a trade-off, or you need to invest something there for that to be somehow actionable. Or how do you say it, Maiju?
Yeah, no, that's well put. Let's have, I would say, the last question. Because the sustainability topic is there, and we know that the carbon footprint of the construction industry is the largest, right, in the world. And we know also that Sweden is quite advanced in sustainability topic. So how do you see Sweden, and maybe like compared to the other world, and why are you doing very well?
I would say that Sweden is doing very well because we are really good in collaborations between the public-private sector, and there is a number of infrastructure projects building up to this. Basically, it's the infrastructure for what's it called, remote heating or distributed heating, Skärvagen in Swedish, is a large part in the fact that Sweden is doing very well within this area. We have a very big system for that, so our heating is quite clean. But I also feel that there are a number of things within real estate that maybe aren't really measured today, that also add to climate change problems. So in that sense, I think it generally has to do that we're good into energy. We're really good into that. Yeah. And we are good into innovation and industrial thinking. Yeah. But I think that we also need to understand that working with sustainable goals is the most important thing that we can do, but we cannot calculate that using cut cost. Yeah. I mean, there is in energy efficiency, of course, we reduce costs, but we also have an investment. So we need to count a lot.
Thank you. It was really a pleasure to talk to you. And thank you for the presentation. And we will now move on to our next speaker.
Thanks, guys.
Great to be here. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.